When George Lucas saw the massive line forming outside the Chinese theater on May 25, 1977, he didn't even realize it was for his movie, Star Wars. Having faced ridicule and a production meltdown that left him beyond burnout, he was sure Star Wars was going to ruin him. Instead, it catapulted his name into a stratosphere rivaling Charlie Chaplin and Walt Disney. But why? The answer begins in a dark room in dead silence when Lucas pre-screened a patched-together rough cut of Star Wars to his friends, some of the greatest creators in the world. And they hated it. Only one, Steven Spielberg, saw Star Wars' potential. After all, Spielberg's career was also declared dead just 2 years before, when he overran his budget and schedule on his movie. But this movie, Jaws, had found surprising depth and new camera techniques, not only proving Spielberg a cinematic master, but also creating the first summer blockbuster, grossing an unexpected and enormous $220 million. Admittedly, this rough cut of Star Wars lacked the special effects, John Williams' iconic score, and needed a tightening of the opening crawl and a cutting down of the storyline. These were elements Steven Spielberg could see that likely the others couldn't. But perhaps there was more. For within the rough cut of Star Wars was a diamond of a film only a few industry professionals saw and formed an alliance behind. While the rest of the industry was firmly backing the trend of dark and cynical adult-themed films, a few professionals in particular saw Star Wars potential. One of these was executive Pete Myers, who had the insurmountable effort of distributing Star Wars. But Myers was not only selling Star Wars, he was also selling the movie everyone wanted, a dark and adult drama called The Other Side of Midnight. Myers told theaters that if they wanted midnight, they had to take Star Wars. His strategy worked, but just barely. Star Wars got 32 theaters, while The Other Side of Midnight got 431. Myers had waged war to get Star Wars into theaters, but it still had to be promoted by executive Charles Lippincott. While other movies like The Other Side of Midnight would put together large PR campaigns, Lippincott, a lover of comic books and science fiction himself, went to this hyper-engaged audience through niche publications and conferences, and instead of large billboards and ad campaigns, spoke publicly on the movie and published a Star Wars comic book and novel and let them loose months before the Star Wars release date. Myers clawed together 32 theaters, and Lippincott had managed to promote to thousands hoping for a spark. But now Lucas's team actually had to deliver Star Wars Final Cut. And while they did deliver it domestically, Lucas was so buried in work on foreign dubbings, he forgot Star Wars was even premiering in the United States. In May, he was burnt out, believing he was finished, and stopped at the iconic Hamburger Hamlet to eat lunch, and noticed a line outside the Chinese theater across the street. He wondered what movie was playing. His then wife, Marcia Lucas, told him it was his movie. Lucas had been so buried in work and finishing his foreign dubbings, he had forgotten Star Wars was premiering. George and Martha Lucas had worked at a breakneck pace, recutting the film. And somehow in a most impossible way with producer Gary Kurtz and mad genius John Dykstra, Lucas had created an unbelievable spectacle. This sheer spectacle is often credited for Star Wars' success. But Lucas had untapped a demand no one saw and he and Spielberg intuitively grasped, a missing market demand. Most believe it starts with the kids, but it actually starts with the grandparents. 1977 was 30 years after World War II, meaning that grandparents watching Star Wars could have been on a farm when they were younger and been swept up into an army fighting an empire, just like Luke Skywalker did. The models of the starships used in Star Wars were built from models from previous war eras. Recognizable characters appeared on the screen, tributing war heroes and frontiersmen cowboys. Star Wars met the greatest generation and the silent generation where they were, not upending the golden age of films, but instead tributing the widescreen spectacles from before, revealing heroes and heroines that were relatable but renewed. Leia Organa, Luke Skywalker, and Han Solo looked like characters they had seen before. Star Wars warmly greeted the greatest generation and silent generation, which made up just over 30% of the population. But Star Wars also found a home with the massive population segment, the large and growing market force, the baby boomers. This generation was just becoming parents and were finding challenges with the unprecedented rise in two-income homes, divorce rates, and massive social upheaval. Star Wars found a way to remind this generation of their youth, such as Buck Rogers, Flash Gordon, and Star Trek, and yet combine the effects of movies like 2001: Space Odyssey and spaghetti westerns. But most important, their kids loved it. If Star Wars helped connect baby boomers with their parents, it truly helped them find a bridge to their children. A recently divorced parent working over 60 hours a week might not have time to spend, but they could stop for a moment at a local Kmart and buy their kids a Star Wars toy. The baby boomers' children, Generation X, found in Star Wars a home for their wandering moral compass and escapism. Even before the VCR, Lucas let loose vinyl, toys, and books, and an endless amount of merchandise that were not simply fun, but were also helping children connect on playgrounds, building lore in a world that allowed them clear guidelines where the good guys won. The 1975 theme of Jaws might have been victorious, but the movie was terrifying. And Rocky was a slower movie, artistic, and for adults, at least at the time. In Star Wars, what Lucas had done had not just given the United States mesmerizing special effects and a happy ending, but it connected multiple generations by giving them a golden age film reborn. As a result, ticket sales not only surged, they went supernova. While The Other Side of Midnight, the film everyone thought would be a hit, had a mediocre performance, Star Wars in its first year alone surpassed even Jaws, making over $300 million globally, which leads us to the answer as to why Star Wars was so successful. While the world was chasing trend, and that trend was cynicism, Star Wars went the other way, seeking to connect and pay tribute to the best of an era gone by, while also finding a new voice and helping a new generation find itself, even as the world seemed to fall apart. Alan Ladd greenlit Star Wars, not understanding the film, but believing in Lucas. Spielberg saw Star Wars for what it could be, and whether George Lucas knew it or not, he intuitively found a global audience who was tired of the cynicism, the upheaval, and the darkness, who was just begging for some connection and hope. Please like, share, comment, and subscribe. This is Muro.